We must wage what I have called total war against public enemy number one in the United States, the problem of dangerous drugs.
The war on drugs has been an utter failure.
I was walking with my daughter along the lake, and we were just walking along, and there was a patch of ground with one plant in it, and I just said to her, do you know what? If we took a leaf off that plant now, which grows there, and ate it, and it made us feel great, someone would come along and say, you can't take a leaf off that plant anymore. That's how stupid it is. That's how absolutely ludicrous it is. You know what I mean? You can't take a leaf off that plant and eat it anymore because it's harmful. It's ludicrous. But that, if you strip it all down to its basic, that's it. Why not? Why can't I take a leaf off that plant and feel good? Who am I harming?
The difficult thing is that when I start to think about the war on drugs, I'm seized with a kind of it's almost a hysteria, do you know? Because first of all, how the fuck do you have a war on an abstract noun?
Well, the war on drugs is, for me, an obscenity. But it has its roots in racism. And it's just been a complete failure. Mass incarceration of people. And drugs now probably more available than they've ever been, and probably a better value than they've ever been. But I remember an interesting observation from Carl Hart at our conference.
People are fond of saying that the war on drugs has failed. That's such a lie. The war on drugs has been successful. It's been so successful, that's why it continues. It's been successful at increasing people's budgets, including mine. In terms of scientists, in terms of law enforcement, treatment providers, people who provide treatment, politicians, it has been hugely successful. So the notion that it hasn't been successful, it's just simplistic and wrong. Trust me, if it hadn't been successful, we would not still be talking about the war on drugs.
Oh, no question, it's a complete and utter failure. I mean, depending on what it's meant to achieve. If it's meant to achieve the marginalisation of the poorest people, attacks on people's health and families and lives, not just in this country but across the globe, if it's meant to make people feel so alienated that the only thing is going to make them feel okay again is having some drugs. If what we want to do is introduce more people to prisons and have more people die, and yeah, let's get basic, more leg ulcers, more groin injecting, more problems, bang on. War on drugs delivers poverty and ill health every time.
I am no doubt in the UK the biggest problem we're going to have about implementing change is actually getting politicians on board, getting politicians to be honest and willing to consider other options. It's like, not so long ago we saw a parliamentary group come up with a report to look at different options, and what happened was that we saw the government actually just pushed it aside and not even considered it. That is not a good way that a democracy should be considering other options. There is loads of evidence that the war on drugs has negative impact, it costs. It is about time, that we actually, after decades of putting up with it, actually looked at what the other options are.
Legalisation would be one option, decriminalisation would be another option, and certain policy organisations like Transform have outlined lots of different viable options within regulation. Certainly something that I would like to see is a start made with things like drug consumption rooms and access to drug testing, which is shown to be really effective in other countries. So it would be good at least to feel that we could have an informed and realistic debate about it in the UK, and it does feel like there's a growing demand, certainly among services, but also among the general public to do something different.
I think the public have always been ahead of the politicians in terms of drugs. I mean, I speak to a lot of people, obviously, because people know that, oh, you run Glasgow, what does Glasgow do? And then what's your view on drugs? And generally, they don't really want to see people in prison.
I would rather have a system, far rather, have a situation where if people were running into difficulties with their drug use, they could access support without fear, access support without the discrimination and stigma that is continually reinforced by the criminalisation of people's behaviour. And for those small minority of people who use drugs who do run into problems, a humane, considered, respectful intervention that considers the health harms associated with their behaviour. It's just increasingly perverse that we should criminalise people for doing just that. Criminalise people for criminal behaviour, yes. But we've criminalised the taking of substances in a way that's just clearly counterproductive.
We are at a crossroads and we have a decision to make, and certainly part of that is obviously about politicians, but much more importantly part of the wider population to lobby our politicians to voice our opinions about doing something different. And I always think about that saying, if you do what you always did, you'll get what you always got. And that's what it feels like with drug policy at the moment. If we want things to change radically, then we need to be brave and make some different decisions and look at models of other countries and what's been effective and think about piloting some of those initiatives.